Now, Dublin saw its second knife attack within 1 week occurred on Saturday, which is starting the conversation again of whether or not Dublin city centre is safe.
Joining us now to discuss the landscape of crime affecting our capital and across the country is former Governor of Mountjoy Prison, John Lonergan. Good morning to you, John. Thank you so much for joining us. I think we were all so shocked when we saw the scenes and the headlines over the weekend. But just figures released yesterday by the Irish Times noted 2,150 knives were seized last year. Are we starting to see a culture more of people carrying knives and knife crime right across the country?
Well, certainly, there's a lot of indications to say that that's true. If you have over 2,000 confiscations, you can estimate that the reality is a lot worse, because that would indicate that very few knives are confiscated, and they're generally only confiscated when the Gardaí have contact with somebody, arrest somebody, search somebody, and that doesn't happen unless they're already investigating something that has happened. So I would estimate that there's a significant number of people out there carrying weapons, knives and other types of weapons, and that is, something that we should be concerned about. There's also, Tommy, a significant increase in violence, over the last 10, 15, 20 years. That's quite obvious now, and especially around with men. This old macho culture still exists, where it is almost accepted that men should be aggressive against each other and use violence against each other. We have made progress in relation to other aspects of violence, especially violence against women and violence against children. And the one area that I think we are neglecting is the one around where men are involved. And my view for the last number of years has been that we should differentiate between all crimes, particularly around violent crime, and it should be up on a pedestal. It should be totally unacceptable, whether that involves weapons or just physical violence, because there's some very vicious violence as well that does not involve knives, but knives, I suppose, are the ultimate. We need a campaign as well to raise awareness around it. I do my own little bit in schools, especially at second level, to talk to young men about the dangers of having a weapon in their possession at any time, and especially when they're socialising. It should be totally unacceptable, and when somebody is found with in possession of such a weapon, there should be very serious consequences. And that's one of the things, Tommy, that I keep arguing about, that in modern society there seems to be a lack of consequences for people, and again, especially men. And they seem to think that they can carry out those sort of attacks on people and almost get away with it. And I think we have to demonstrate quite clearly that there are serious consequences for anybody who is in possession of a knife or a weapon. Okay. And until we do that, I think we will continue to have those horrific examples of attacks on people and innocent people getting badly injured, or in some cases their lives being taken.
Well, John, let's talk about that a little bit. You've brought up many things. In the UK, you see amnesties for knives to be handed over to the police. We know more and more that knives are being ordered off places like Amazon and coming into countries like that. We see call-out videos all the time of people holding blades. But you did mention that there has to be a reason to not do this. So let's talk about sentencing. So what we've got here is that trespassing with a knife or intimidating with a knife, unlawfully causing injury with a knife, they've all been increased from 5 to 7 years in jail. All of our jails are overcrowded. We know we don't have enough space. So, are people going to get these sentences? We're seeing some sentences that people are very angry with at the moment. Does this go far enough to stop people carrying knives? There's a number of factors in that. I personally would say that we need the law to be interpreted very black and white. Just being in possession. There's no need, in my view, to be proving that they have any intent involved or whatever. But for me, once a person is in possession of a knife or a weapon, that's enough for me to justify a significant consequence for that.
I think it's totally irrelevant what the conditions of the prison service are in terms of overcrowding, and it should not influence the courts and the legislators in relation to what the penalties should be. What I know from my experience is that many young men carry out those type of attacks. They have, at the time, they're often under the influence of drugs as well, which must come onto the scene as well. We must consider that as well, the amount of illicit drugs that are being used. And then when they have weapons on their person, anybody and most people can interpret and anticipate what's going to happen. So for me, the overcrowding of prisons is a separate issue. It's up to us as a society to highlight and to emphasize that violent attacks against other human beings are just unacceptable. It's the highest profile crime. We should have it up there on a pedestal, and we should send a clear message out to anybody that's found in possession of weapons, that are involved in attacks on people, that they suffer consequences. There has to be consequences.
Consequences, and you're saying overcrowding in prisons is a separate issue, but it is interlinked if the prisons are packed, where they're going to send them to as well. In terms of consequences, how are we going to increase safety?
Listen,
do we need more guards? Do we need to be doing stopping and searching? How are we going to make the streets more safe if you are saying this is just completely on the rise?
Yeah, Tommy, it's very important for me to say this around prison overcrowding. There's an issue around prison overcrowding. The one thing that I know of that myself over the years, that people who commit violent crime, very few of them are released prematurely, and there's plenty of people in prison who are there for non-violent crime that I believe are far more suitable to be released in society. I believe that we should make a very strong statement around violence against the person. And that means that somebody is sent to prison, they stay in prison. We have adequate accommodation to house violent people. And there are many other people. I see it every day, people being sentenced for non-violent crime. There's often no need to imprison. The second thing around Garda presence, I think most people in Dublin would recognise that we need extra Garda presence on the streets. But I must also say to your viewers that more Gardaí on the street won't automatically eliminate the type of incidents that are happening nowadays especially during evening time and after pubs close and nightclubs. It's just impossible for the guards to eliminate that. But what we do need is that when they are identified and when they are brought to justice, that there's a very strict penalty. That message must go out loud and clear.
Well, the penalty is one that you've certainly driven home this morning. We really do appreciate you talking to us. John Lonergan, former governor of Mountjoy Prison, thank you so much. And we must remember that guard in Stoneybatter in Dublin recently attacked someone. He took someone down who had a knife and he was unarmed. So it's amazing what they're doing. 0896
consequences, really.
111. We would love to hear from you as to what you thought about what John Lonergan just said.